So he and I would start to have arguments, and if if I go into these arguments, he wouldn't back down. So to the point that I got so angry. I've never been that angry in my life until I met him, honestly. I would sometimes just can't communicate myself enough. And whatever I say, he'll come back with such a good response. And I just can't win. And I get so angry to the point sometimes I'm like throwing papers away, throwing all over the place, even that. So because of these very intense fights that we started to have and this doubts that, okay, now that I look back, that was the fear that really started to have a huge, it started to get in the way of me trusting him. And I think it really led to me becoming disrespectful.
Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your husband's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm discussing how do you respect a husband who hasn't earned it? My guest Yuki felt like the victim of her abusive husband since forever, and she couldn't tell anyone because she felt too ashamed. Then she found a way to interrupt the familiar pattern at her house. And today she has a very respectful marriage that includes joking, and she truly feels her husband's love. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. But first, let's dig into how to respect a husband who hasn't earned it. Because if your husband is not doing the things he promised, like to love, honor, and cherish, or if he's drinking way too much, or if there's another woman that he's too close with, or if he's just become a loser pants, then how are you going to be able to respect him? I mean, what if he's abusive? What if he's distant or absent? What if he's walking away from the marriage? What if you married a con man who conned you? It's already painful enough to be in that situation without feeling like now you should somehow just suck it up and be a respectful saint to him. How is that even humanly possible? Especially if you look at your husband and all you feel is disgust because of his narcissism or the way he's mean to the kids or the way he cruises along while you do everything. It's already more than you should be putting up with. So that last one, him cruising along while you do everything, that was actually me. I couldn't respect my husband because I was doing all the cleaning, the cooking, the shopping, the laundry, earning all the money, paying the bills, while certain people just watch TV on the couch. And to say I was resentful, that's an understatement. I was livid. I was seething. I saw nothing to respect about my husband's choices. Why should I? I didn't. I even had a marriage counselor validate that I was the good spouse and he was not the good spouse. There was one good one, me, one bad one, him. I had forgotten that just a few years earlier, I thought he was incredible. Back then, he was so romantic and he wrote songs and played guitar and sang and did the dishes and took out the trash and paid off my credit card bill and brought me flowers and presents and took me on trips. And he was so smart and handsome and athletic and hardworking and funny and playful. Weirdly, this is the same guy we're talking about. Same guy. But that was before, and he wasn't like that at all anymore in our early marriage to me. And anyway, who cares if you can write songs and play guitar if the house is a mess and the bills need to get paid? How's that even helping? So it was with great reluctance and all kinds of resistance that I started to change my focus from what I was unhappy about with my husband to what I did appreciate. And it seemed so hard and so ridiculous to focus on the little tiny things he was doing, like taking out the trash. Whoopee. Oh, he bought me a sweater for my birthday. Yeah, but that was with my own money that I had to work to earn. So does that even count? As you can see, I was pretty attached to being miserable, and I did not take well to this experiment of changing my focus to what I appreciated about him. So then I thought, well, he takes care of the yard. So that's pretty good. And the cars, he takes care of those too. Brownie points for that. He he cleaned the garage. Okay, he put together those shelves. That's not nothing. And then I started to think about how even though I had been treating him like a loser, like a loosey pants, my husband always came home to me. He never left. He never even threatened to leave. He was committed to me, even though I had been a porcupine wife for a long time. So I appreciated that he was loyal. And then I thought, well, he had been a good provider before and always was willing to spend every dime on me. So that was, I mean, wow. I mean, I was starting to feel a little mushy about the whole thing because maybe I had been focusing on all the wrong things. I mean, I had so much evidence that he did not deserve my respect, but maybe he did deserve more respect than I was giving him. And I started to think about how I would feel if John said he didn't love me and I had to first show him that I deserved his love. What if he said, "You haven't earned my love. When you earn my love, then I'll love you." Then I could say, "But you already said you loved me, and I thought that meant forever." Right. And then he could say, "Well, you already said you respected me, and I thought that was forever." Ooh. And I'd be like, huh. I would be like, "Hey, don't turn this around and make it about me when you're the one who's wrong here." I used to say things like that a lot because I was charming like that and not in the habit of being accountable yet. But now I have this habit of focusing on what I like about John, and you'll be shocked to learn he is just like that guy I fell in love with. He still writes great songs and plays guitar and sings, which is so fun. And he does all the dishes and makes the bed and does more than I do around here. And he does all those things that amazed and impressed me when I first fell in love with him. And I find it so easy to respect him just from being willing, barely, to start making a gratitude list for him, which turned out to be long and getting longer all the time. It's pretty humbling to realize I had the key the whole time. The whole time. So it's interesting to think about what might happen if you started to make a gratitude list. Let's say you thought of 3 things a day that you appreciate about your husband. And what if you thanked him for doing and being those things that you were grateful for, the things on your list? I'm warning you right now, you might end up feeling that there's so much you respect about the man you chose. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. My guest Yuki felt like the victim of her abusive husband since forever. She couldn't tell anyone because she felt too ashamed. Then she found a way to interrupt the familiar pattern at her house, and today she has a very respectful marriage. It includes joking, and she truly feels her husband's love. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Yuki, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today to get to hear your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, what were things like in the battle days at your house?
Yes. I've been doing a lot of self-reflection lately, and I actually want to go even further, all the way back to how I grew up and how I became who I was when I was going into the battle days. So I grew up in this like very traditional Japanese little town. My mom was definitely the female role, taking care of the home. My dad was out working as a police officer, had a really hard schedule. And even though they express love to their children very differently than we do, I think anyway. That's in my opinion. They don't tell you they love you, they don't hug you, kiss you, or anything like that. But I've always felt love growing up because I just knew my dad was working hard for me, for my good future. And my mom was always around at home and I needed her. And also, I had this very strong female role models in my home. My grandma, she's a generation that survived after the war, and she raised four daughters in a time that she had nothing. And I keep hearing that story over and over and over. And I, of course, got to spend some time with her before she died. And I just definitely, that was a strong role model for me. So I've always had this, I grew up being taught about the value of perseverance. You just gotta keep going. You can't give up. So in Japan, I did great with school. I was a good student. When I was 17, I decided to come to this country, not knowing any language. Of course, it was hard, but then that's when that perseverance kicked in and worked for me. Any hard stuff that came my way, I somehow managed to overcome. And so when I was in college, that's when I met now my husband, and I fell in love with him right away. He had come from really hard background. He had, his family, his parents divorced when he was 3, and then, was raised by his grandparents. And then, he even left the home when he was a teenager, became a ward of state, had some homelessness in ward of state. And then he managed to go to college, and that's when I met him. So definitely I did get, I was impressed. And he was a few years older than me. He had lots of life experiences. He looked very confident. He didn't care what other people thought. And that strength to me was so attractive. Yeah, and then so I started to date him, and then what's interesting is that this kind of a doubt started to come in pretty early on in my relationship. The thing is, like, I was this good student, I had lots of friends, good grades, you know, and good family, and he really didn't have much, not good student per se. And everyone I would meet would say stuff like, "Oh, you are such an angel to be with him." Even his mom and aunt that I met and I fell in love with so much, they would be like, "Oh my goodness, Yuki, thank you so much. You're an angel." You know? So like these types of things, of course I say, oh yeah, you're welcome, I guess. It started to definitely kind of feed into this doubt that I started to have. And then that doubt was also fueled by the frequent arguments that we started to have. And he was an opinionated person. He cares so much about justice, what's right and what's not right. And he wouldn't back down. And that's a sweet thing, actually. Like if he saw some friend of ours, someone that we may not even be that close, but if he saw that something is being done to her that's not right, he would totally get in, like you go out of the way to stand up for that person. And to the point that person might even say, hey, 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 no, 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 I don't necessarily want that much conflict in my life. It's okay. It's okay. Let it go. And he wouldn't let it go. It's that kind of personality. So he and I would start to have arguments. And if, if, if I go into these arguments, he wouldn't back down. So to the point that I got so angry. I've never been that angry in my life until I met him, honestly. I would sometimes just can't communicate myself enough. And whatever I say, he'll come back with such a good response. And I just can't win. And I get so angry to the point sometimes I'm like throwing papers away, throwing all over the place, even that. So because of these very intense fights that we started to have and this doubts that, okay, now that I look back, that was the fear that really started to have it started to get in the way of me trusting him. And I think it really led to me becoming disrespectful.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm so glad I can see that now.
Well, I see the setup. I mean, I think this is a tremendous insight about his family saying, "Oh, you're such an angel," and thanking you. It's almost like, "Oh, you're making a sacrifice, Yuki, to be with him." It's you like almost like they were saying, "You married beneath you," right?
Right? Exactly.
So, and you were like, "Well, yeah, yeah, I guess I did. I'm doing him a favor." And I could see how that could set you up badly for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that developed into a disrespect. You're like, I can't respect this man. He cares about justice, but to a fault. It's too much. People don't even want him to care. And
Hmm.
so yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the doubt, my husband always says doubt is the devil. And the doubt crept in
Mm.
and created disrespect.
It's so true. I mean, and I had no idea back then. And honestly, for the 20 years following, I had no idea. It's
No,
right. A lot of this
no.
stuff I just found out maybe within the last year or so. And then, something else that was also happening this early part of our relationship is that I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so I got to meet his mom. She was such a sweet person and I loved her. And, because I left my family in Japan and came here alone, I was so happy to now have this potential mother figure. And I started to kind of imagine like, oh, like I could get along with her so beautifully. She was just such a nice person. I think everyone honestly got along with her. But unfortunately, about within a year of me knowing her, she passed away with cancer. She was very young. She was
Oh.
still in the 40s. Right. And she was the only real supportive person also in his life too, my husband's life. And so
Mm.
this event definitely caused a lot of mental uh, anguish. And so I am both he and I are starting to finish college. We don't really know what to do with our life yet. And then we were having this conversation one night, and we were also talking about how he's basically, I think he's just kind of learning how to cope with the loss of his mom. And somehow the conversation led to me saying, because he was a biology major, and I said, you should be a psychiatrist. I think you'd be good at that. You have such an insight. And then he actually turned it right back and said to me, you should be a psychiatrist. You're the one with good grades. And I was a music major.
Oh.
I had never, ever, 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 ever thought, ever, never, ever, ever thought to become a physician. But definitely that conversation was a life changing one because I did end up going to medical school because of
And you're a
that.
physician now. You're a
Now I
physician.
am. Yeah. So the thing what happened was, yes, oh, okay, interesting. Okay, maybe medical school could be something I could consider. But I'm like, how am I gonna afford that? I did not want to ask my parents. They've helped me with undergrad. I did not want to ask them any more support. And obviously, my husband does not have any family members or anything. So how am I gonna afford that? And then so I, well, I guess we decided together. I got married to him. We were like, I was thinking I'm gonna get married to him sometime anyway. I think this is the guy.
Yeah.
Even though I had all the doubt too, but I was like, I think he's very special. I'm gonna get married to him sometime anyway. So why don't we do that? And
Yeah.
I can also get my career going. And so I called my father in Japan. I explained everything to him, and he's like, okay, if that's what you think that's right, then do it. So we did a very quick, very cheap wedding ceremony at his family friend who was a notary. He had a garden outside. So I just wore the nicest dress that I had at the time. He wore his Hawaiian shirt. And we just had aunt and half sister, his aunt and his half sister there. And we had a ceremony one day. And then boom, I was married. So then I went to, long story short, went to medical school. I ended up going to a school that's outside of the United States. So the first 2 years I was outside the United States, and I wanted him to actually stay in the States so that he can maybe work or do something productive while I'm away. But he decided to just follow me. He came. He couldn't work when I was in med school those first 2 years because he had no working visa there. So he did nothing. Again, these types of experience continue to contribute to my doubt. Is he using me?
Yeah.
Is he really that good guy that I thought he was?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he still continues to have these argumentative tendencies. And anytime I have a friend that I feel like, oh, we could get close, something would happen, and he might just, you know, swear at her, and oh, then we don't, unfortunately, I just feel so bad, you know. I
You're embarrassed.
apologize, and
Yeah.
I just try not to interact anymore. And so this was a pattern for sure, just kept going on and on and on.
Oh,
And
yeah.
ultimately, we came back to the United States to finish up my medical school, and I was in New York City. I was just going through the rotations, different hospitals, um, um, living on this fifth floor walk up building. That's the only apartment that we could really afford. And I got pregnant. Yeah, so that was definitely, and it was 2008, financial crisis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was.
Yes, right in the
Yeah.
middle of New York City. I mean, so I was very scared. I mean, I was already doubtful, but I now really don't know what's happening. Should we have this child? Is it? Is it? I'm just scared. That's what it was. But back
Terrified.
then, I was
Yeah.
just terrified. I was not skilled enough to really identify that as a fear, and I also couldn't express it in a respectful way. So I was probably complaining to him that he's not working. I mean, he's trying, but 2008, everyone lost a job,
Everyone. Yeah.
right? And I'm, I was like, should we have this child? And to him, I think it must have sounded like I want to abort this child no matter what. So this, of course, led to a pretty intense conversations and an even physical one, to the point that I ended up calling 911. Yeah, the 911 call was, it was crazy. I mean, because all this time I was trying to hide this husband from the world. And I was also trying to hide this wife, this person who I thought must be looking like a weak person who cannot leave the relationship. So that was kind of crazy that I ended up calling 911. But I was that desperate, I think, at that
Yeah.
time. Just like, really, like, someone help me.
Yes, it does say,
Yeah,
it says a lot about how you didn't feel like you had any choice. You needed help. You needed help.
right. Yeah. And honestly, the physical fight was nothing significant. I mean, yeah, you never know though, right? When someone is angry by mistake, or if the place that got hit was a really wrong spot. I mean, of course, you shouldn't take violence or physical conflict with any. You should definitely not be looking at it as lightly. But so the EMS came, and he got taken to the jail. I got taken to the emergency room.
Wow.
And I didn't have any significant injury, just a little bit of bruising. That's about it. I mean, that's what was documented on the medical record. But I was discharged the next morning with a diagnosis of victim of domestic violence.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's that fear that I've always had has come true at that point, I guess, at least to the outside world.
yeah. Oh gosh. And you were already feeling some shame about, and you, like the way you said it, you were trying to hide him from the world and also hide yourself from the world. So what were the medical people telling you?
Yeah, exactly. So that definitely was the EMS lady that picked me up. I mean, she must see a lot of stuff, right? She was like, "Hey, girl, you gotta leave this relationship." She said, "I meet nice girls like you, and next time I see her dead."
Oh,
I know. That was really
terrifying.
hard to hear. That was
Very
definitely
hard
hard
to
to hear.
hear. Very hard to hear. And she meant well. She was just trying to protect you,
That's right.
but
That's right.
it only fed your doubt so much more, it sounds
Further.
like.
Right. Yeah. And that, so I had no safe place to go home to. So that night, emergency room kept me. That way I could at least sleep on that bed. And then the next morning, they gave me a bunch of resources for battered women, shelters, and all that, right? And then I got discharged, and I I could have I could have called. In fact, I may have even called one of those shelters, but I just couldn't go there. That I just didn't know what to do, honestly. That's what it was. I was really worried that if I accept this diagnosis, that's going to lead me to a life that is completely out of my control. And not that I felt like my life was in control at that point, but still,
Yeah.
at least if I keep going, I will eventually become a physician, right? I knew that I would be strong enough to go through this med school and training and all that. So if I just kept doing that, then at least I'll be all right somehow. Whereas if I now went to the shelter, what is left for me? I had no idea. I was just so scared. I was actually probably more scared to go to the shelter than to go back to him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess I still trusted myself a little bit, maybe, because I was the one that picked him. I was the one that decided to get married to him. That's all been my decision.
Yes.
So that's exactly what happened. He got released from jail pretty much the same day. He called me, and we apologized to each other, and we went back to the apartment. Yeah.
I think this is so important to hear. I appreciate hearing this so much because I think there is this impression like, if you're battered, you just can go to a shelter. It's just no, then you'll be safe. And who wouldn't do that? Of course you should do that. But when you share your story and where you were and what that meant to you. And you were pregnant at this time too, right? It was not an easy, it wasn't such a great option. It was kind of a terrible option because you were going to go down this other path, though your whole life would have looked very different than it does now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think I still
Hence,
definitely, I mean, I'm so glad that that virtue of perseverance was really strong in me. I can't give up. This is the kind of, exactly the kind of stuff that my grandma probably went through. Can't give up. Just have to keep going.
have to keep
So I
going.
kept going. I just kept going. And, both emotional and physical. I mean, there was nothing ever as bad as that emergency room episode, but he would yell, he would swear. So those blowouts would happen pretty frequently over the next 6 years or so, and I just kept saying to myself, "All right, as long as I graduate my med school, everything is gonna be okay. As soon as I finish my training, residency training, everything is gonna be okay." And as soon as I finish my fellowship training, everything's gonna be okay. Like I just kept going on and on and on. And then, but the surprising thing was, after I graduated from fellowship and I had a real job, the fights just kept continuing. And I had no idea why now. I had no idea why. Just felt so hopeless. And at this point, I started to pretty much just tell myself that, okay, this is the mistake I made, decision I made. I have to just own it. He's not gonna change, so this relationship is not gonna change. And I would sometimes just feel like I had no safe home to go home to. I just felt like I had no place or friends that I could open up to. And divorce did come up often, definitely a lot in my mind. Not so much early on from his mouth, but it did come up a lot. And at one point, I remember asking my daughter, who was probably about 8 or so back then, like, "Hey, if it seems like I or Dad and I just continue to create these fights and keep you guys miserable, and if that's what's happening, maybe it's better for Mama and Dada to separate." And then, you will still spend time with me. You will still spend time with Dada. And my daughter, she said, no, 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 that's not what we want. Yeah. So I didn't. I never asked her that question ever again. After that one time I heard no, I said, okay, her answer is no. So I'm just going to sacrifice myself. It's sort of what I was thinking.
Yeah. For your kids. You would
Yeah.
stay in this marriage, even though it's horrible, miserable, you're suffering, he's suffering, kids are suffering.
Yeah.
This is just what you have to do for your whole life.
Yeah.
Or at least until
Yeah.
they're grown. At least until they're grown.
Right. Exactly. That's a really, yeah. And, um, yeah, I just seriously didn't know what to do. And a lot of times, like, I would just dash out of the home after an argument, and I'll be parked in the side of the road and just crying and crying and crying. And sometimes desperately, I may have looked for a divorce attorney in the area and then called a number. But of course, like, oh, he's not accepting any appointments right now. I'm like, what? Can someone help me? I don't know what to do. Seriously, that's how I felt for the longest time.
And did you go to marriage counseling?
No, I just couldn't. I
Yeah.
couldn't. The um, fear of being told that I'm too weak to be staying in this relationship. If you care about yourself and if you cared about your kids, you should be leaving.
Yeah, you gotta
And
go.
I
Yeah.
just couldn't face it.
Mm-mm. No, no.
Yeah.
What a predicament. It just sounds so painful and so hopeless.
Yeah.
And you would need a lot of perseverance to get through that, Yuki. Mm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So what happened?
Yeah. So the turning point was exactly 2 years ago, actually, New Year's Eve. I must have had another blowout with him because I woke up early in the morning with the eyes all like puffy and from crying, and I was gonna go work a 24-hour shift on New Year's Eve, right? Like that thought alone is already pretty miserable.
Yes, it is. Yes.
But I'm doing it for my family, and if I cannot bring a happy family, at least I could bring home the income. So again, buried my head in the sand. I was going to go get ready to work. And I never listened to any podcast before this. But for some reason that morning, as I'm getting ready and, I'm going to have a little bit of commute, so I might as well listen to something. And I wonder if some marriage counselor would be giving me some sort of wisdom on podcasts. And I typed marriage counseling, and then you showed up on the podcast. And I'm so glad you did because you had also just published a episode called How Not to Walk on Eggshells When He Yells. And that was just so perfect for me. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. How not to walk on eggshells when he yells, if that's even possible. So I listened to that right away, and I was so shocked. First of all, you did not tell me that I need to leave the relationship if I care about myself and my kids. You gave me a lot of practical wisdom. To be honest, it was the first time listening to your work. So SFP, what is the SFP? What is she talking about on his paper and her paper? What are you talking? Like I had to listen to it multiple times, to be honest. But it was very enlightening for sure. And I felt like I saw that tiny little thread, spider thread leading up to heaven. Like, oh, this is something that I could hold on to. There's something here. And so when I came home, I hear you for the first time. So what was happening is my husband and I were sitting at the dinner. He was complaining about the politics. And normally I would have tried to be his devil's advocate or like, oh, maybe you should think of it this way, you know? But I didn't do that. I just kept my mouth shut. I looked at his eyes and I just said, I hear you. And he it was immediate. He softened his face, and I think he may have even told me, thank you for listening. So I realized, holy cow, I've never been listening to him all these years. Like all these times I say, I'm listening, I'm listening, I'm listening. I guess I wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did that feel scary to do? Like
No, actually, that one was okay.
that one was all right.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I hear you was okay because he was just complaining about politics. He was not complaining about my cooking or the way I was dressing or nothing like that. So it was easy for me to not take it personal and just simply listen just for the sake of listening. That's it. I'm not putting any judgment whether he's right or wrong or I'm right or wrong. Just that I hear you. And when I saw that face change and softens like that, I realized this is definitely something I can hold on to.
So you sound relieved, like you felt so relieved that there was an option, a third way besides suffering silently, being miserable, and or going to a shelter or whatever, or divorcing,
Right,
like leaving him, calling a
right.
divorce attorney. It was such a relief. Like there might be a way forward that is peaceful, at least.
Yes.
Oof.
You. it was a big relief to know that, okay, there's a hope here. And also that was January. So you were doing a 1 week adored wife
Uh,
challenge. And I jumped on that and I saw that I'm not the only person who is suffering like this. I thought I was the only one. That's why I was hiding all these years, right? But no, there are so many other women who are strong,
yes.
but and care about her and her children, but somehow suffering in her relationship. It has nothing to do with the weakness or
It
strength
doesn't
of
mean
that
you're
person.
weak. It does not mean you're weak. You just, no one ever showed you. That's all it means. No one ever
That's
taught you.
right. No, you're right. Yeah, so then there were a bunch of other things that I started to try. And I want to say that the most powerful thing is so I've had a lot of these negative SFPs about him, right? That he's an angry person and
Negative
that
spouse fulfilling
negative,
prophecies. Yeah.
absolutely. And I was so good at collecting evidence. I mean, he does throw lots of evidence. If you want to
Sure.
pick them up, it's there for sure.
You can find it. You can find it. I gotcha.
But what happened was, as I changed my opinion about him, or no, it's not so much that. It's more of I returned to how I used to feel about him. Yeah, 20 years ago when I met him, how impressed I was about him, how different I thought he was, and how strong I thought he was. Yet there was this gentle side of him that, he loved me and cared about me, and all that I had forgotten. And I just had to remember it through your program. And that helped me so much to bring back those negative, positive SFPs about him, that he's actually a sweet, tender person, that he cares about me so much. And if he is showing some anger at the world outside of us, then that's a lot of times because he's trying to protect me from the world. That's just so evil and awful. And that mind shift change was huge because then I started to really hear his heart message really clearly. Yeah. I mean, it might be hard for some women to hear this, but one time he told me, Yuki, I think you should go to the gym. He
Oh,
said that to me. Okay, so yeah, you could take it. You could take it.
ouch.
Okay, he's telling me I'm fat. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. You're out of
But
shape. Yeah, yeah.
right, but he cares about me. He saw that, yeah, through COVID and 2020, of course, we were definitely not moving around much. And he really cares about my health. He wants me to live a happy, 20, 30, 40, 50 more years. I mean, he also saw how hard I worked to get to this point. And so that's why he was telling me that he's concerned about my health. I'm not moving around much, and maybe it's good for you to get a little bit more, muscle going. And what's interesting is I initially kind of resisted that recommendation,
Oh, sure.
but I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I was able to listen to that heart message, and I really listened. And I decided to go back to the gym. And guess what? That is now my self care.
Oh my
One
gosh.
of my rare, like, I don't have too many self care items, but this is definitely one huge thing. I love coming to the gym now.
You love it. Wow.
Yeah.
So he said you should go to the gym, and part of you could have you thought at least, I think I'm going to get upset right now because he's telling me I'm fat. And but instead, you heard a heart message. Oh, he loves me. He wants me to be healthy and feel good. And you ran with that, and now you go to the gym, and that is your happy place.
Yeah.
So totally different outcome than it could have been a fight.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, when he first said that, of course, I cried.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sad now. Like, and I think I did resist. I think it was not as smooth as you described it. Definitely, I had probably maybe a week or so of like, like not wanting to listen to him because he just called me fat.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. He's mean. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's mean.
He's
Uh-huh.
mean. What a jerk. Yeah.
Right,
Right.
right.
But you
But
don't, but now you don't hear it that way.
no, no, I can definitely listen to that heart message beautifully. And in that combination of the heart message and positive SFP is just so powerful there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So the old SFP, the old spouse fulfilling prophecy is he's angry and he says mean things. And what is your new spouse fulfilling prophecy? How do you say it?
Yeah. He he loves me. He loves us, myself and my kids, our kids, and he cares about us so much. And he wants to protect us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see the evidence for that. You see the
I
evidence
do
for it.
too,
Yeah.
totally. And it is a truth. No, it's not a stretch to say that anymore. And in fact, when I realized that I've always thought, when I first met him, that's how I felt about him. So that's why it was not a stretch for me to come back there again.
Okay, now when you first started this spouse fulfilling prophecy, he loves us and he wants to protect us. It did feel like a stretch or it didn't because you remembered?
So the fact that he wants to protect us, that piece that did not feel much of a stretch. However, because usually when I'm trying to tell myself these positive SFPs, those are usually the times that he's being angry and he's being loud. So it definitely required me to pause for a moment, not to get so reactive and get dragged into this whole emotional thing that he's starting, the bait that we call.
Yes, fate. Yes.
Yeah, I actually because it's a bait that he throws very often, I sing a song in my head. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And that's a
Cute.
little cue for me. It's a reminder for me. Hey, hey, don't go there. Just keep swimming. And that does help
Love
me.
it. I love it. That's a much better song. Your old song was he's so mean, right? And now
That's right.
you're
Yeah.
kind of more on Yuki's paper too,
Yeah, that's
right?
right.
You're like, okay, I'm just going to keep swimming. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That was definitely such a relief to think that, okay, there are a lot of things on my paper that I have power over now. Whereas I used to think that, oh, this life is never gonna change unless he changes.
Yes. Yes.
I cannot change him,
No.
and
No.
but now I can shift my focus to the area that I can change.
So when you started using your spouse fulfilling prophecy, because I feel like you did an amazing job, right? This is very powerful what you've created here, because that EMS lady told you to leave. This is an abusive man. You're going to end up dead. And now you've got a guy who loves you and protects you. So I want to dig into how you use this spouse fulfilling prophecy so everybody listening could use it. So did you say it to him? Did you say, I know you love me and you want to protect us? Or you did? Okay. Or did you
Good
write it
question.
down? Or how
So
did you
yeah,
do
good
it?
question. So at the beginning, it started in my mind that definitely my opinion about him changed to the positive way. And then I actually then started to express it. So I have a like another really good story to share. As you can sort of imagine, when you are in this kind of victim mindset, then, a lot of times that comes into the bedroom too. So the longest time I've been feeling like a victim, and the PI was uh, definitely not a pleasant experience for me, and sometimes just really scary, something I don't even want to do.
Oh, awful.
But just recently, I would say in the last 6 months or so, that's been changing quite a bit because when I'm in the middle of PI and he's doing whatever he wants to do, which is a little bit uncomfortable for me, I used to go into this mind of, oh, he's using me, he doesn't care about me, blah, 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 blah. The negative SFP, negative self and spouse fulfilling prophecy starts to just go back and back and back and forth in my mind. And I actually then said it out loud. You care about me. You don't want to hurt me. And I just said it. They didn't really have any expectation of what would happen if I say that. But when I said that, he said, I love you. I care about you. And he just slowed things down for me. He was just so sweet. So now slowly I am starting to think of PI as at least a neutral thing. It's not quite positive yet, but it's not negative, at least. Mm-hmm.
You have evidence that he does care about you,
Yeah.
from his words and his actions. Now, when you said that, you said, I care, you care about me. I mean, I felt like you could hear a pin drop. Like it must have felt like a stretch that, or a lie even.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Okay.
It did.
So it took
Definitely.
some courage to say,
Yeah.
but you said it.
Yeah.
And now it's out there. Now,
Yes.
and now it feels real.
It does. It does. And it's kind of interesting that the first experiment I had with saying that SFP out loud was in the bedroom. Um, then that now started to go to the kitchen too, like everywhere in our house. I saw, oh, you care about me, or like, and then of course I do switch into gratitude too. But thank you so much for taking care of us, and thank you so much for caring about our kids or me, and one day, I think it was Thanksgiving, maybe last year or something, he was cooking in the kitchen and the oven died in the middle of him cooking turkey. And of course, he was so mad, and was yelling at the oven and stove. And instead of telling him it's okay, or instead of trying to solve the situation by moving the turkey to, whatever, or instead of telling him, don't be so angry because this is a special holiday moment right now,
You're
I
ruining it,
just,
right? Yeah.
right, exactly. I just kept my duct tape on and I said, oh, he cares about us so much. He wanted us to have that beautiful turkey. And now, he's upset because he can't make
Can't
that turkey
provide
for
it.
us. And so I said that. I think I may have said it in my mind at that particular time, but then I just decided to go take a shower. I just left. I just decided to go take care of myself and be happy. And so many times I wanted to go back to the kitchen to see how things are going, but I resisted that. And 10 minutes later, he was calm. He's like, yeah, I just moved the turkey from this side to that side, and hopefully it'll work out. And we ended up having late dinner, but we did have dinner.
Oh my gosh. And he solved it and you didn't have to solve or interfere or calm him down or you just had to take a shower. All you had to do was take a shower and then everything got fixed right by itself. So, so
It
you
really does. Sorry, go ahead.
did you feel like a genius that day? I mean, were you like,
Yeah, Yeah, I was really surprised that day. But now that I've seen that kind of stuff over and over and over, that I realized that sometimes me just not doing anything is the most helpful thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So, and you've been giving him gratitude. You've been using spouse fulfilling prophecies. I heard the duct tape in there too. And I'm curious about, for some reason, I want to ask you about vulnerability. Is that a skill you've?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So definitely I could not be vulnerable a year ago or even maybe 6 months ago. But again, I feel like the biggest transformation started to happen in my most painful place, which was the bedroom. Actually, it's kind of interesting that that's where I'm seeing a lot more evidence that if I'm being vulnerable, like so my previous way of thinking about vulnerability is to complain, ouch, that hurts during PI. Uh, and that backfired all the time.
Oh,
But I think that now my approach is more in the form of expressing my desire vulnerably. I think that's where really started to work. So, for example, I would love to feel loved. I would love to feel good. I actually even said that too. I remember this is more recent, but and when he heard my desire in that vulnerable way, I think that's when he really started to be my hero.
really? Interesting. So I also love like you saying, ouch. I mean, sometimes this is a great example of like, oh, the skills aren't working, right? I said, ouch. Let's hear. Go ahead.
Yes, ouch is that's definitely I had a discovery about that one. And in my case, in this particular dynamic that I have with my husband, I still I think have a lot more healing that I need to do before I can say ouch. Because my husband has been hurt too the last 20 years by my disrespect. Because I now see that he's been just only trying so hard to be my hero. Like he was taking care of the home front with kids and everything so I can focus going to med school and do all that stuff. It is definitely demanding if you don't have a spouse who is supportive like that. And I
Yes.
never, ever, ever, I don't think, really giving him credit for it. It's only recently I realized that. And then I said a gratitude about that and apologized for disrespect. And all those other times when he got angry, for example, at my friend or my roommate back in college, and we ended up uh, losing our relationship. I know he was feeling so bad about that. He himself was hurt the last 20 years. And so nowadays, and for example, when he said you should go to the gym, and if I happen to say ouch, I didn't, but if I did say ouch, I think that would have actually turned into a big blowout argument because he was saying it only because he wants to suggest what's good for me. And ouch is a way for me to reject that.
Yeah, gotcha. What a great
Yeah.
insight. What a great insight, Yuki, because you could have used that as evidence of like, oh, see, my husband is different. He really is abusive. He really is a mean jerk. And when I say ouch, he just gets worse. He gets louder, more angry. So the skills are not going to work for me. But what I heard you doing was like going all the way to the basement, right? Taking the elevator all the way to the basement. Like, okay, what is really happening when I'm saying ouch? And what I hear you saying is it was a rejection. It was like a complaint. And he responded to the rejection and the complaint. So even though the word is was right, technically you're like, saying the right thing. The energy underneath was didn't wasn't vulnerable. It wasn't really vulnerable. It was more defensive, is what I hear.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so instead of ouch, if I say my desire vulnerably, that works much better for us because
Yeah.
then he really wants to fulfill my desires, sometimes so quickly that he regrets on his own.
So wait, sometimes so quickly that he what?
So, okay, this is so, all right. I, about a year ago, I get the private coaching and things were going really well, I thought, and I expressed a desire that, oh, I would love to go to Japan. With all that training and all that stuff, I hadn't gone back to Japan for like 11 years. And, kids, and I would love to bring our kids to Japan. Uh, I set that desire. That was me experimenting with expressing the desire without the expectation. And he right away, I think because we were already, like, I was a more pleasant person with all the skills, and he was really stepping up to be my hero. So he's very quickly said, oh, then let's do it. So that was October when I expressed that desire. And in December, Christmas time, we went to Japan. The little bit of learning experience here is that my private coaching was ending in December. I thought I could handle it, but there were a lot of stuff that went wrong when we went to Japan. That was about 80% outside of my control, but maybe 20% ish, maybe I could have done something about. So I'm not going to get into that one. I'm still trying to process what happened, but ended up being a kind of a traumatic experience,
Oh
unfortunately. Yeah,
no.
like he was angry the entire time, and of course, they all kind of little got sick a little bit with a little cold and fever, and we were all like, "Oh, is this COVID?" And lots of stuff happened. So it was not the best, like,
You're like, that was a great
happily
trip.
ever
No.
after. No, it was not. It was not.
You're like, let's never do that again.
Right.
Okay.
But at least I mean, I definitely see that it was him jumping on my desire right away and say, yeah, then let's do it. And
This
we are
is
still
awesome.
talking about, how we need to do a revenge family trip.
I love that. A revenge. You're gonna show Japan who's boss. Like that trip, who's boss. That's so cute.
Right.
Okay. So
So I think after all, it's a good thing, but yeah.
yeah, it's your family against these forces like this, whatever, the sickness and things like that, right? Instead of
Yes.
you and him against each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. I do definitely now feel like it's my husband and I versus the world now.
Yeah. 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 I love that. That's
That's definitely a
yeah.
good way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how, I mean, it is so endearing that he was so quick, like, okay, it's October. We're going to Japan in 2 months. And I think I hear you saying, like you missed your private coaching a little bit too. That was part of what was helping you show up as the best Yuki. And then
Yeah,
that stopped.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That just stopped at the perfect timing. Every week, what's helpful about the private coaching is we would meet every 2 weeks, online or on the phone. And so definitely keeps me accountable and also gives me that little relief, I think, that reminder that I'm not here alone. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I have that safe community of people that I could talk to, and they're not going to judge me. They're not going to judge my husband. That's the kind of big pain point for me, you know? Like I see good in him, and
And we
yeah,
do
I
too.
don't, yeah, that's just so nice.
Yeah, yeah, we do. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
not that you're not an angel, but you picked a man who matches you, right? Who has
Right.
all the wonderful qualities that you were looking for, and you got them. So yeah.
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 Oh, it's amazing. Well, how has this impacted your kids, you think?
Yeah, good question. So this again tells you a lot about who my husband is because he did such a good job raising them when I was just so busy at work. So they've always been really respectful to my husband.
Hmm.
And then it may have a little bit to do with the fact that they were young and preteen years, and they adored my husband and they adored
Yeah.
me too. But
Yeah.
yeah, so, so they've always been respectful, I feel. So I don't necessarily think that my transformation has changed them in any way per se. But I do think that now my oldest is 14 and the twins are 11. And I think that I am just so grateful that I learned about these skills before she was well into the teen years. Um, I think that I was modeling quite a bit of disrespect. I think if I didn't go through these transformation, it's very possible that she would have suffered in a very similar way as I did. And she works hard too, the same kind of thing. I can definitely see that happening in her life too, the same way. So one way I think that I was able to help was that I um, with my transformation, did help them continue to be the respectful people they are. And another thing I also started to realize very recently is that um, I shared with you in the past, Laura, that I'm now, I think, in this next phase of learning about myself and healing and rediscovering my self worth, giving lots of self compassion. And that alone is a whole another journey, I think. And so with especially my oldest daughter, 14-year-old, she's, I think she's seen a lot more. She's been through the majority of all this time. And um, I do now share with her, uh, okay, I had these negative opinions about your dad. you know these were my negative SSPs about him, and I changed that. I don't believe in that anymore, and instead I now know your dad is such a caring, sweet person who wants to always make me happy. So I share my journey with her
Process.
like that a little
Yeah.
bit, and what I see her from her when I do that is such a I feel so much love from her. She's so happy that I was able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really, and then I feel so connected. I feel so intimate with her when I share these experiences with her, and mindset change that I've gone through. And she's just truly happy for me that I am in this peaceful place. And when I see her being happy, of course that makes me super happy, right? This
Yes.
cycle
Yes.
just keeps going.
Wow.
And that is also helping me in this healing process as well, the self-compassion part. I am now learning to receive that love from her, and in a pure way. Yeah.
Wow. So this is having a big impact on your relationship with your 14-year-old daughter. And I am just having a moment of thinking about like I just for some reason thought about my own mother explaining to me that she changed her negative SFPs about my father and what the impact that would have had on me. So when you said it, it just really hit me. I would have loved that. I would have loved to have heard those words from her mouth. That would have been such a gift to me as a daughter. So I can just
Oh,
imagine how moving that is to hear for
oh,
her.
that's so nice to hear. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually was not aware of how she was taking them. I mean, she is also that 8-year-old daughter
Yeah,
that
she's the
I
8-year-old
said
daughter that
to
said,
her, no,
"No,
she
no, no."
said, no, don't, please don't.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Yeah.
have you here too. And yeah, so,
Yeah, she's
yeah.
an interesting character in your story, huh? For of your marriage. So, and I think it's beautiful what you're creating with your daughter. I love that. Has your husband acknowledged any change in you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he almost every day. So even in that first 6 months period when I learned about your skills and I started to do that, the very early on, already he started to say at the dinner table, we are all sitting down in front of our kids. He would say stuff like, Mama changed a lot, right? Mama is such a pleasant person to be with now. And we are
Oh,
so lucky. And I'm so thankful. Yeah, he said all that pretty early on. I mean, yeah,
it must have
yeah,
felt so good. It just
it
must have melted
definitely,
you.
it has. It has. Of course, I think I can receive that much better nowadays
Oh,
compared to back then because I was still not having a very good receiving skill. I still didn't have quite as good of a receiving skill, you know. But now I can definitely just take that compliment as is
and feel
and
all warm
even
and
give.
fuzzy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I can say,
Yeah.
yes, I did a good job.
Oh, you did. You did such a good job. So, and what is your marriage like now? Like today? What's it like?
Yeah, um, so he woke me up with a sweet PI. Yeah, I received it graciously.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And then he is he is just constantly saying thank you to me. And we're he's so funny. Kids are laughing and he's laughing with them, joking around, tickling. Um if they're playing video games a lot, I don't say anything because I'm happy that they're happy. And I go do the Zoom call with you instead.
perfect, perfect. So, and it's not perfect, is what I hear. It's not perfect, but it sounds happy. It sounds nice. It sounds like a pleasant home.
Yes, I do also realize that, life is supposed to have a little bit of blemishes on it. That's just how life is supposed to be. And that's what I was trying to hide from the external world in the past. And by doing that, because of those blemishes, I was really hard on myself
Yeah,
or trying to control them, trying to get rid of those blemishes. And
yeah,
and that was not um maybe when you're younger and you just need to get good grades and you need to pass the test and become a successful career person, maybe it works. That work ethic, maybe it works. And that self-sacrifice may work too, but it's not serving me anymore for sure. I am a different uh phase of life, I think. So I now try to, if there are blemishes, some little negative things that happen in my life, I try so hard not to take it personally, but also then I do try to share with my trusted people, which includes my husband, that, oh, that, that, that makes me feel like I'm not a good mom, but I know I'm a good mom. Or something like that. I
Oh,
tried to say it vulnerably, and then if I say stuff like that, then the next morning when I wake up, he wakes me up with French toast, breakfast, stuff like that. It's just, I'm really experimenting now with my vulnerability and receiving. It's so beautiful.
it's so beautiful. It is. And I feel I can see the beauty when you describe this so intimately. Yeah, the French toast. You feel loved. You feel loved. There's, you're not suffering. And this is, I'm really struck by basically 20 years of trying to keep this secret. And now here you are on a podcast. You're telling the whole world all these personal things, really intimate things. This is a big change. This is incredibly courageous. And I hear this is part of it. This is the part of the journey you're on. To live out loud, to come out and say,
Yeah.
this is what my family has gone through. This is what we've experienced. Here's how we've lived. And here are the things that I did to make my house playful and passionate again and peaceful. Uh, and if, yeah, it's super inspiring. It's super inspiring. I mean, what do you think you would tell yourself if you could go back in time and say what you know now?
Yeah. So, so I will say to her that, believe it or not, those things that you are doing at work that's making you successful, you may have to open up and um, get rid of these fixed beliefs that you have about what makes you successful. You may not be right. When I I was so stubborn. I mean, I will probably
Uh,
gently tell her, hey, your husband is actually right. Listen to him. And he is there wanting to help you. And he is helping you.
mm,
Yeah. And it's okay to rely on him. It's okay to open up to him. It's okay to show him of your imperfection. I think that's where I would probably first start. Maybe that may lead to her realizing that then she can also open up to the world too. Maybe she can even show her imperfection to the world too. But that may take a little bit of time. So at least the first, yeah, it's okay to trust your husband. I think that I'll start from there.
yeah, it's beautiful. I like how you just considered where you were at that time and how you could approach yourself, right? With compassion, I feel like, and empathy and gentleness. That and it sounds like you have more of that now than you did for yourself a few years
Yeah,
ago. Uh,
yeah,
so, Yuki, what is your advice for a woman who has called 911 and has said people tell her you have to leave. He's gonna kill you. Um, and uh, and she feels like she definitely is. It's embarrassing. She doesn't want to tell anybody, and she wants what you have now, where she feels that she can rely on her husband, and she gets French toast when she's vulnerable, and there's lots of PI happening, and I mean, I think you feel safe now, right? You feel safe
Yeah.
in your marriage.
Yeah.
So, and she wants what you have. What's your tip for her to get
Yeah.
from there to here?
Yeah. So the most important thing is your life is your life, and only you have a power over what happens to your life. So what I would really advise her to do is I would ask her to look internally about herself. Like, why did you get married to him 20 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it might be? What made you be with him? And I think then she'll find the answer there. Yeah.
You picked him for a reason, and they were good reasons, and then you
Yeah.
forgot. And I did the same thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great tip, just to try to go back and think about those reasons. And
Right.
yeah, that you might be taking for granted.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, it's an incredible story, Yuki, and it's just such a joy to see. Look at you smiling. You the biggest smile on your face right now. And I do feel like this is such a celebration. I definitely want to give you the wife award. You have earned it. You deserve this. You
Thank
are
you.
so accomplished. This is the biggest accomplishment. I know you're a physician and you went through medical school and a fellowship and all that, but for me, there's nothing more important than what the work you did to fix your family, to fix your marriage, to the gift you gave to your children. Just so very honored to witness this journey and your tremendous accomplishment.
Thank you so much. I am receiving that graciously.
That's great. That's great. You deserve it. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably, so authentically. You inspired so many people today.
Thank you so much.
According to a study at Harvard, and this was horrifying to hear, if you know a couple who's getting divorced, you are 75% more likely to get divorced too. Woo! It matters who you listen to, which is why over 7,000 women like you who think that having a great marriage is important have joined our free Adored Wife group. The Adored Wife group is a launch pad where you can meet our certified coaches and discover the best next steps for making your marriage last and thrive. It's 100% free to join. Just go to lauradoyle.org/group right now. This is a private group and it's not for everybody, but if you are a wife or girlfriend who thinks that having a great marriage is important too, we'd all really like to meet you. So go to lauradoyle.org/group right now to join us free. That's lauradoyle.org/group. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, I'm going to show you 3 ways to force your marriage to improve. Just force it. No joke. You can force it to improve. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that my brother-in-law taught me that beverages are the key to living the Serenity Prayer. I have black tea to help me change the things that I can, and wine to help me accept the things I can't change.